Great.
Well, great to see you guys here. That's what I'm grateful for. It's always exciting when you have at least someone show up, Jocelyn, right? You gotta have at least one person, Greg, right? Although I remember down in Orem, Utah, okay, you'll appreciate this. I remember I'd be the only one showing up in the entire room. And I just keep doing my affirmations like I was talking about yesterday. And I do it no matter what. Just as I was sitting there, I was like, boy, this feels nice to be back to us. I mean, I don't think people still realize it's. I kind of got after Russ a few weeks ago for saying, do you really think you're going to show up? I'm like, I still don't think you understand the magnitude of my concussion, but that's okay. That's okay. You still don't have to. You don't think you need to understand it, but I don't think he even understood the magnitude of my concussion because it made it to where I literally was just trying to survive literally through the day. And you need to go see Dr. Bueller, Mr. J. Bentley. I saw him again this week, and man, that guy has brought back the life to my daughter, and I can't even imagine where I would be without him. He is like magical. He's like a modern day just healer, man. It's amazing what he's done. He's I think one of his very best friends is John Stockton. He went just up to John Stockton's daughter's wedding, and that's who he worked on. He was on the Jazzes. The moment John Stockton and Carl Malone were gone. If you haven't seen Dr. Bueller, you should go see him, by the way. That's my promotion for the day. You've seen him. Yeah, I got to know him because he actually got a few extra miles per hour for my son in baseball, which was cool. So, all right, hey, one more gratitude. Anybody else? Matthew, give me a gratitude. What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for the individuals that gave me critical feedback and role play. And I noticed how quickly I got defensive to it.
Good.
I haven't been
Amen.
here. I haven't been here in a while.
That's funny.
A month.
Yeah, we're good. Well, today we may not do that, but as I said, we'll start also doing some role plays in here. I want to start doing some of that with you. I just want to set some of the more of the foundation in place, but of what we're doing. But just as a reminder, I want to get into the depth of a schedule. In fact, I was on a coaching call with Tyler just yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about prospecting and just the whole dynamic of it. So anybody else? Just one more. Mackenzie, looking so springy over there in your yellow. No. You have one quick. You'll give her a moment to think.
Super quick. So we took a listing last week, and then we weren't sure if they were going to cancel or not because the old man actually had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
After signing, but he's through his surgery and all good. So
it's all going well.
Yeah, we're gonna go forward with listing next week. So.
Good. All right. Even after I called on her, Kelly, that's a good sign. All right, that's good. Any specific family? Just kidding. All right.
For mom.
That's right. Exactly. Amen. All right. Okay. So let's just for a moment. I know I keep getting on this, Jennifer. I keep talking about this prospecting with everybody, and we have come out of a different market to where so many of us were able to just simply wait for business to happen, or there was a little bit of business that was happening. I love when I was in the elevator just yesterday with Jay. I said, hey, I'm going to talk about prospecting. We're going to keep on that. He goes, well, look, fundamentally, that's what I've been doing anyway. So just realize, I know that some of you are doing that. Just keep doing that. And just refine that process. But if I was just to give you one example, in fact, a guy I need to call today because he called me late last night. Back up. When I met Brian Burnett, just going to give perspective. When I met Brian Burnett was just a new licensee. And I remember when I met him, and I would compete out there in the marketplace, and he lived up here in Salt Lake, or in the Utah County area, but he would kind of go roam across the Utah County and Salt Lake County. So we'd have opportunities. If you don't know who Brian Burnett, he's an agent down in St. George, Utah. And who's gone and listened to him prospect? I know you have, Dylan. Oh, Tyler, you have too. I didn't know that. Okay, great. Well, I still remember, I think I mentioned this just quickly yesterday, but I remember when Dylan went down and listened to him prospect, he kind of shrugged his shoulders and went, okay, well, that didn't seem like that big of a deal. And it's not that big of a deal when you listen to Brian. You listen to Brian, and you realize that, okay, wait, you're pretty good at what you do. You've got some good scripts and dialogues, and certainly you can see that you've practiced a bunch, but you don't sit there and go, oh my gosh, how does he do it? I mean, was that your, you're not, all right, you're not. And most of the time when I'm with Brian in the past, up until the last few years, but I would say for the last 5 years, 3 out of those 5 was always, hey, when this is said to you, what do you say? When this is said to you, what do you say? Well, when they say this, what do you say? And so every time our coaching had really nothing to do with anything but the skill sets. And I remember years ago when I was with Robert Fillmore again, and I remember we were sitting there chatting and talking, and I said, well, what do you coach on when they're doing everything right? Oh, the only thing you coach on is skill sets, because that's all there is. If they're disciplined, you're doing the prospecting, your mindset's good, you're making some money, you know your purpose, you're driven to go do what you're supposed to do, you have your goals, you have your plan, you have your schedule. All of a sudden you sit back and go, okay, man, I can do this thing. And all of a sudden you sit there and realize the only thing to work on at that moment is the way in which we communicate and the skill sets we have. Well, when we recruited Brian Burnett to Century 21, we had actually, first we just opened up down in St. George, but he was doing over 50 transactions a year. Now, give you perspective. Here he is doing over 50 transactions a year. He lives up in Utah County. He says, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore up here. This isn't where I want to live. I want to be down in St. George. It's where I want to raise my family. And so he literally stands up, drives down to St. George with Jenica, his wife, and says, I'm done with Utah. Now, I don't know about you, but how many of you would leave, $250,000 at the time, probably $350,000 at the time, give or take, income, and just say, I'm done. I'm going down south. So he picked up, and I remember I tried to recruit him, Kelly, at the time. And he's like, you're so brand new down there. I got to be with someone established. And so he ended up going to Remax. Well, of course, I kept after him, and finally I recruited him. I say we, and there's a bunch of people involved, but I remember when he came over, he was earning $500,000. Now, in fairness, that was one of the largest agents I've ever recruited in the amount of income. So he'd gone from literally zero down in St. George to hero again. And what I love about it, that when I recruited him, he was earning $500,000. Well, we coached, we trained, we worked on skill sets. And in the very next year, he went to 1.2 million. So he was pretty excited about that, I presume, right, Tyler? Do you remember that when he did that?
Yep.
First $1 million that he had earned. And he wasn't the first one that had ever done that in our company. By the way, Dave Parker had done it. Justin Udy had done it. But it was a big deal. This is about, I'm going to say, give or take, about 6 years ago. Not more than 6, though. Right. Then the very next year, he went to 2 point something. Let's just say 2 million plus. It was, I can't remember exactly the number, but it was a little over 2 million. And I want to remind you that he went down to St. George again, earning nothing, zero, picked up everything and left. So gets right back up to $500,000 about 18 months, 2 years later. 2 years later, we recruit him. He goes to 1.2, then he goes to 2, then he goes to a little over 3 million. Then he goes again over 3 million. I think it was 3.4 million to be exact last year. And this year he's on track for $4 million in little old St. George, Utah. Been there, Michael?
Yeah.
Been to St. George? Jocelyn, been to St. George? Never?
No.
Wow. All right. Jennifer, you've been to St. George. Okay. Of course. Jocelyn, where did you grow up here? And you've never driven to Vegas? Wow. All right. Road trip for Jocelyn. Road trip. All right, here we go. So here he is now on track for $4 million this year. Now, again, you may say, oh my gosh, those are numbers that I can't even put my brain around. And some of these people get mad at me. Why do you talk about these big numbers? Because, well, I talk about them because it shows what's possible, Matt Clark, right? Right?
It's possible.
It is possible. That's the key here. The key is it's possible. And so you got to ask yourself, well, how does someone do that? You think, well, it's got to be so magical. I mean, they got to be a mystic. They got to do special things, and, they got to be manipulating people to earn that type of money. And well, the answer is no, it's none of those things. It's simply this. All it is this. He prospects for 4 hours a day. And some of you will sit around, Tyler, right? You're not sitting around though.
Or golf.
Right? Or golf around.
Oh.
And you ask yourself, how does he do it? How makes him so great? Well, what makes him so great, Matt, is he prospects consistently for 4 hours a day. And so what you may think, well, what's the big deal? Well, That's 20 hours a week. Now here's the good part. He does it so well that there's now 2 other guys that are right next to him. Dakota, I think Sean is the other guy, but Dakota is one of the main ones. And so now, like what I used to do is I had on one side, I had Rob Oakey on one side of me, and on the other side, I had John Rhodes. Some of you remember John Rhodes. And then I got other people on the other side of me where I started like, hey, I'm gonna have even more people prospect with me and drive it to where we were setting 4 or 5 appointments a day, where I had a list of friends on one side. Remember Alyssa, Jay? And all of a sudden and then some of you certainly remember Chris Martindale. So all of a sudden I have 4 people around me to where we were setting 5 appointments a day. Well, you can do some pretty significant things when you're setting 5 appointments a day, especially if you're the guy going on. And you may say, well, why are you telling me all this? Because what I'm trying to tell you is, again, we can go back to what I mentioned yesterday. Some of you weren't here, but I just would point out to you that the market has nothing to do with whether you're successful or not. It's simply just how do you choose to respond in today's market? Well, all that Brian has done, he's on track for 4 million. By the way, he's on track for 4 million. I don't know what his goal is, Jason. Do you know what it is? Do we know what it is? It's 5 million actually, his goal. So he's behind goal. Now, some of you are like, well, that's not that big of a deal. Well, it is a big deal to him, right? Because that's what he wants to do because he knows he can do it. So just ask yourself, could you do this? Well, I don't know if you need 4 hours today, April, but you need at least 3 or 4, maybe 3 of them 4, right? Welcome. I know I'm just like, why are you picking on me? Because I like to pick, just saying I've been picking on everybody like Matt, who should be prospecting for 4 hours a day. Because he's going to earn how much by the end of the year? Additional?
500.
Yeah, because we're not going to change our goal, Jennifer. We're going to change our what? What are we going to change?
Approach.
Our approach. I'm just checking in here with everybody because we start adjusting our goals. We start thinking differently. We start thinking, well, what's possible? Well, what is possible? Right. And this really spurred me to think about. In fact, Tyler and I had a great conversation yesterday on a little coaching session. And we were talking about the fact of, well, what can you wrap your brain around? How many of you so easily can wrap your brain around $4 million a year? I mean, can you easily wrap your brain around that and selling homes? I'm not saying you need to. And I don't think you need to wrap around 3, 2, or 3 and 2 and 1, whatever the number is. So here's the deal. This is what I have realized. This is what built everything that I have ever created is this model. And this is, and Tyler, I apologize. We're going to talk about the model we talked about a little bit yesterday because I think it's so relevant. And what I started to realize is I can do the math. Just look, let's do some math here. Some math is simple, that there's about 240 work days in the year. At least be a place where you might want to take some notes. And on those 240 work days, and give or take, let's just say 40 plus 42 weeks in a year. So I'm saying you can even take 2 or 3 months almost off. But 240 work days in a year out of 360, how many, just make sure you're awake. How many days are in the year? 14, right?
Yeah.
All right. 300. Thank you. They were confused. They didn't realize there was that many days to work in a year. All right. So 240 work days in a year. And if you set 1 or more appointment a day, that means you're having 240 set. Now, the thing is that people go, well, George, if you spent all day just making sure, Tyler, one, but your goal is how many? 2 appointments, Matt, a day. We wouldn't be even in that feeling I felt when you were like, oh, I don't know. Because the thing is everything changes when you focus on the right stuff. So although you may say, man, but I have these big goals and I don't know. Well, that's the same thing. I didn't know that. I still remember people. Here's the thing. You might be the only person telling you what you can't do. See, the good news is I had a line of people telling me I couldn't do it. I had lots of people. Jason probably knew some of them and telling me, well, you're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. You can't do that. You can't succeed. You're going to fail. I mean, people are outwardly telling me how I'm going to fail. Now, I don't think you have a lot of people. Hopefully you don't have a spouse or a significant other telling you how you're going to fail. You might want to tell them a little bit less about your goals and just surprise them, as sometimes you see a few people talk about, right? But set 1 or more a day, and that means 240 set. Well, I know that between buyers and sellers, I'm not going to separate listings and buyers right now, but I know that if you will go and attend about 120 of those, and what I mean by attend is they'll get with like a Dylan or a Jim and they'll say, hey, let's get a loan. And or they'll say, hey, yeah, for sure, Kelly, come on over. Let's list this house. Well, then all of a sudden, when you get there, we know that again, that's a 50% ratio. And when you get there and you attend 120 appointments, I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're going to get about 65% of them. And can someone just pull out their calculator? And maybe there's a few rain men in here. 65% of 120, Jim, you got it? I mean, again, this just, you start realizing like, wait, what is the problem? There's no problem with you when you do this math. What is that? 78. So we'll just round it up to 80 because we're agents and that's what we do. We round everything up. So 80 transactions are going to be legit. Like you're either going to have a buyer broker signed or the listing is going to be taken. But in today's market, we're coming to some levels of reality, which means that about 80–90% of the homes are selling, but we'll just say that 80% of them sell or that they buy. And so 80% of 80 is how much? Jim, you're the lender in here. What do we got going? How many?
64.
64?
That's right.
All right, we'll round up 65. We'll assume you're at 81% of them sell, right? That sell. So now 65 sold. Just by chance, does anybody know what the average commission is in Everest?
12.
It's 12. Nice job, by the way. You should be in my position, Trevor. All right, 12,000 bucks. And who can do 12,000 times 65? 780,000. And can you see why Tyler needs to? It seems like a good. I mean, it seems like a reasonable living. I mean, you can survive on that, right? And so the problem is that now here's the thing: we go down to this 780 or $1 million+ income. Oh gosh, I don't know if I can wrap my brain around that. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems so scary. I don't know if I can be $500,000 by the end of the year. I mean, that's a lot of money, right, Matt?
It's a lot of money.
All right, just checking. Okay. And so 780,000 bucks is a lot of money too. We all know that. Puts you in the top 1% of all income earners in the US. It puts you in the top 10%. If you're earning over $640,000, it puts you in the top 10% of the 1%. What do you think about that for a minute? But what is the one thing that you have to do? Well, we can go back and say it's 4 hours of prospecting or 3 or 4 hours, 20. But the issue is not the $1 million. The issue is not 780. The issue is not $500,000. The issue is that this one thing right here, doing that this many times a year, 240 work days a year, you set at least one appointment of either a buyer or a seller every single work day, which again, how many? Okay, I just want to make sure people how many work days are there in the year?
365.
So you can take nearly 3 months off. 3 months off. And you will make nearly $1 million. And the thing that people get confused by is they sit there and they focus on the 780 or the million, $500,000, 2 million, 4 million, whatever the number is. But all that I know is that this is what Brian does. He goes, hey, I'm going to make sure I focus on 2 hours in the morning. And I'm going to focus on 2 hours in the afternoon. And if I do that and I set one appointment an hour, everything else works out. So here's the question. Write this down. Please take notes or put it even in your phone. What can I wrap my mind around? I know it seems like, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a question. It's a real question. What can you wrap your mind around? You know, Dylan, right, as he's getting a start in lending, he's doing such a great job with Phil Fiddler. He's got this, 30-year vet helping him and working with him and doing the stuff that he's doing. And I sit back and I'm like, so it's pretty simple. It is all of a sudden is that if Dylan creates one relationship with a great agent once a week, by the time a year is up, all of a sudden he's got a real huge business. When I started in Spiro way back in the day, Jim, it was all about, can we add one loan officer per month? Well, then someone like Brandy shows up and we're like, well, let's do 5 a month. I'm like, okay, hold on a second here. Time out, right? I mean, because you got brought in, started bringing in so many, which is so awesome. I'm serious. But all of a sudden I could wrap my brain around one loan officer a month. And what I realized is that if one loan officer doing 3, 4, 5 loans a month, that by the end of the year in 2022, that in 2023, I am there to do $1 billion of loan volume in 2023. They say, but how did you wrap your brain around $1 billion? I didn't. I wrapped my brain around the fact that I knew one loan officer can join this company every single month. How did I build Everest? I can call 5 people, set 1 appointment a day. Heard that before, Ruby? That isn't new news, is it?
No.
It's not, right? Right? And if I'm Kenzie or Brandy, I want them to set 2 appointments a day with 2 agents that join this company. That's how simple it is. And now go back 13 and a half years now, and today it's a multi-million-dollar, $100 million company. And 13 years ago, I was turning in my cars, losing my houses, and lost everything. And 6 years later, had everything back and all of it even better. So just ask yourself, you're never too old. You're not, your time hasn't come. You're not going to make it. All that is nonsense. The nonsense is the fact that you actually may believe that you're not capable of, or that your time has passed and that it has not. Or you're too young, or you're too old, or the markets that you can give yourself all sorts of excuses, and people are going to put their arm around you. Oh yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, it's rough. You're old. You're too young. It's hard. Rates have gone up. How are you going to do it? And you can buy into all that, and people will make you feel so warm and fuzzy and make you feel so good. Right. But if I sat down, even like with someone like this young lady right here from North Star Title, Isabel, I would sit there and say, look, I don't need 20 people a week. Just go find 1 or 2 people a week and everything works out. Yeah, have this big goal, but what can you do this week? And now what can you do this day? I'll just close with this. I remember when I was building Everest way back in the day, we were in those red brick condo buildings over there. And some of you have heard this, and I would walk in, I'm like, market's crashing, everything's horrible. I can do anything for 90 days, anything. And I remember saying to myself, oh my gosh, I can't even see past 90 days. I mean, I can't feed my family. I can't pay my utilities. I'm losing my car, and house is going to sheriff's sale. I mean, everything's going crazy. I couldn't even see 90 days because I thought that even in a few days from now, everything was going to be totally different. But I was able to wrap my mind around the idea of the simple things that I could do anything for a month is what I first started to say to myself. Just keep going. You can just one more. Then I got to the point where I couldn't even see a week. Then I couldn't even see, here's what's crazy. I couldn't even see a full day. But what I could see, Kelly, is I could see for a morning. And so I'd walk up these stairs and say, I can do anything for 3 hours. I can do anything. And for some reason, man, that was at least what I could get my mind around. I could wrap my mind around something for 3 hours. So I just challenge you to recognize that as you're moving through the process of, whatever these numbers, and here's the right, you can improve your skills or improve your skill sets, and you can do certain things in these numbers we could get deeper into. But the one thing I'm certain of is that if every single day you set an appointment, you'll make every goal, dream, and everything you want to have happen the way you want it to happen. But if you don't set appointments, then you'll be so overwhelmed by these numbers, and all you'll start doing is the thing I was talking about 2 weeks ago at base camp, which you'll get change the goal. Gotta get realistic here. What's unrealistic about prospecting a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, or maybe it's even a couple hours in the evening? Oh my God, what? Yeah, like shocking. And you can make $1 million or more a year. So just remember, this business isn't complicated, Jocelyn. How long have you been in the business again? 2 months. Don't let all these agents complicate it for you, because it's not that complicated. As I said to her yesterday, when I was 22 years old, I was making 100 contacts a day, Tyler. I made 6 figures my first year in this business. So my point is that it should be inexcusable that the calls aren't being made. Now, do you have to accept rejection? Yes. Maybe someone yells at you? Yes. Will you screw up what you say? Yes. May you not say it perfectly? Yes. May it not be, might be uncomfortable? Yes. That's the reason why you role play with Rick and Ruby and others and your agents and master your craft in this business, and you'll have everything it can offer you. Every trip, every investment, every moment that you want out of this business. But if you can't wrap your brain around the fact that, hey, if you can't set one, okay, can you do, sorry, I said close, but I gotta do this last thing. 3+ hours, hold on, 3+ hours, or right, 30+ contacts, or 1+ appointments. Sometimes I like to put up 2, but something like that, right? Just wrapping this up. That something 3+ hours a day, or 30+ contacts a day, or 1 or more appointments set per day. This has to be your standard. And you have to be able to say, you know, enough with just settling, enough with just, well, I hope, and it's going to be okay. No, just go do it. Go live the life you're destined to live. This, you can wrap your brain around this. If you can't even wrap your brain around 30 contacts, wrap it around 3 hours. If you can't, or 1 appointment, I mean, just get your mind wrapped around one thing that comes over here and says, okay, whatever my goals are, I can do. Because what I can tell you is every day, Ryan's not sitting there thinking about 4 or 5 million. What he's thinking about is, how do I get more prospecting? How do I add 1 more hour? How do I get 1 more person to prospect with me? That's what he's thinking about. That's what his brain is wrapping around. Not 4 million, not 5 million. That's the long-term big goal. Come on, let's go team. But what do I do every day is right here, right there, right here. So something today, I just hope that your brain wraps around and go, okay, I could do that one thing, but then be just unwavering, be relentless going towards it. Okay? Deal?